Hello there. I'm going to continue my coverage of the Opera Euro Rapid, part of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. Now, we are on day 2 out of 3, and well, things are starting to shape up a little bit, and it seems like most of the top seeds will be making it. Carlsen, So, Giri looking good, MVL, Nepomniachtchi, and so on and so forth. So we're in for a treat in the quarterfinals. So I want to try to find some interesting games in these preliminaries. There are a lot of games, so it's difficult to keep up with everything. But I try to find something that I find interesting, and I found this one to be well played. It was Anish Giri with white against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Giri opened with e4. We have the usual Sicilian, c5, knight f3, d6, and it seems like MVL, well, that's his nickname, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, often referred to as MVL, for those that don't know that. We have the open Sicilian, and he went d6, and it looks like he's going for his beloved Najdorf. But here we have a bit of meta, kind of a game within the game. The thing is, Anish Giri, he wrote a course on the Najdorf, a very big course on Chessable, popular course, very high level, so he knows a lot about the Najdorf. Another thing is that currently MVL is leading in the candidates tournament, and the candidates decide who gets to play against Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship match. So both here in this tournament and in the last tournament, Tata Steel, people are speculating that MVL is saving his preparation and not playing his best lines to save them for the candidates, which is a more important tournament in the grand scheme of things. So he doesn't go for the Najdorf, and he plays knight c6. So we have the rouser for black. A slightly different variation of the Sicilian. We have bishop g5 from Giri, e6, queen d2. And white goes for quick queenside castles here. a6, castles, and bishop d7. So black doesn't castle short immediately, so keeping his options open. King b1, always play king b1, we went over that in another Sicilian video, the one with Dominguez against Carlsen. Bishop to e7, and now Giri took on c6. Bishop takes c6. Yeah, I should mention that a quick database search, I found that Giri had this position before. I think he played f3 there, but here he took on c6, and then played f3. Black goes for his counterplay, pawn to b5, and white starts pushing on the king side. Queen c7, and now actually a novelty by Giri. This move has not been played before, knight to e2. And it has some ideas, which we'll see pretty quickly, because MVL plays h6, bishop e3, and now d5, breaking in the center. Now if white were to take here, black would take back with a piece, probably the knight. And it's a general principle that when black is able to break like this with d5 in the Sicilian, very often he equalizes. But if white can push e5, then the structure changes, and the pawn on d5 is maybe in the way of the pieces that want to be there. So there are pros and cons. And Giri actually pushes e5 here, and this is an important resource for white in many Sicilian variations. And sometimes he even sacrifices this pawn. But here it's not a sacrifice. And MVL, he played knight d7. Turns out he can't really take the pawn. Queen takes e5. Bishop f4. And now we see one of the ideas of knight e2. One idea was simply not to get pushed by b4, preemptively moving the knight. But we also have ideas, because at the queen f5, now knight d4 is a great square, hitting the bishop, and more importantly, hitting the queen, so black loses material. He could go to h5, but still knight d4, bishop moves, g4, and the queen is in trouble. We can win a piece here, bishop d3, the knight has to interpose, but in fact the computer likes h5, which I think is funny, and then bishop d3. Queen on the back rank, everything is hemmed in for black, and this is basically winning for white, because the black pieces are so bad. So MVL retreats the knight, and now Giri goes for all the space on the king side, f4. a good square for the knight. Knight jumps into e4, but queen e1. Notice not on e2 because of the fork on g3. So the queen, just like the bishop sometimes, this dominates the knight. So we're covering all the squares. Not that we need to, but g3 could be important. So queen e1, bishop back to d7, doesn't want to give up this bishop. And Anish grabbing all the space, like we said. Long castles. So we see that after g4 here, MVL does not fancy going kingside and facing this massive pawn storm, so he goes queenside. But that has some bad things going for black. The king doesn't have any pawn shelter. For the moment, white doesn't have a lot of pieces around there, but this could quickly change. Bishop d3, g5. Typical MVL, he's always trying to get some counterplay. But maybe here it backfires. After f5, takes f6. These pawns are quite nice. Now we get the pawn on h4. And Giri is ready for the pawn capture on e5. The pawn capture happened, queen takes e5. And now Giri found the best move. Bishop takes e4. We'd love to take with a pawn, but unfortunately that runs into a very nice move. Rook h5, the rook comes to life on h5, setting up tactics here. And after this we have a choice. We could move the knight with tempo, e6 or b5. I think e6 is better, but rook takes e5 is also very good, hitting the queen. Then the knight comes in and we can pick this up. And even though the material will be equal, the weakness of the king and the fact that white will simply penetrate on the dark squares and has an excellent pass pawn, this will decide the game. So MVL took with the queen, but now queen c3, and now we have this annoying pin for black. MVL always going for tactics. King b7, now if you take this, e3 is hanging. But Giri, he takes on e6. Nice move. Opening up defense now. If you take with the queen, this is defended. Can black take on e3? He took on e6, but can he take on e3? No, he can't, because now we play queen c7, check, and then we pick up the rook. Threatening mate, threatening the bishop, and we're already up material. So black has to take the knight, but now the queen comes in, and this looks like a deadly battery here on this diagonal. But MVL finds a solution, d4, trying to blunt the diagonal. Bishop takes d4. Can't take with the rook because I would take back, force the queen trade, because once the bishop takes, there's back rank mate. Queen back to c6. Fortunately for MVL, it's not mate. After this check, the king can go to c8, but it looks very dangerous. Rook h5, threatening to swing over to c5 and win the queen. MVL defends the 5th rank. We have a trade. And bishop b6. He wants to win this pawn here. Note that a move like queen b7 now to protect the pawn is met with rook takes d5. We can't take back because of the mate. So black's hands are tight here, and he went with rook e8. And this is to counter rook takes d5 with rook e1. Back rank mate. But now Giri gets the pawn, makes a few checks, and then gives luft to the king, a4. At the moment the luft is covered, but the luft could become important. Pawn takes, bishop a7 check, king to the corner, queen a5. This is really a tough predicament for black. The king is in the corner, you always have to worry about discoveries, and you're already down a pawn. Add to it that we're attacking the bishop right now. The bishop moves. Bishop b6 check. And it now moves the queen back in and plays a very nice move. Not necessarily the best move, but good enough. Bishop c7. Queen b7 now by MVL. Why didn't he take the bishop? Well, because the geometry, queen check, another queen check, and black can only interpose, and then we take the rook. And we're winning. We're going to win the queen next move. So we can't take the bishop. So queen b7 by MVL. Queen takes a4, hitting the rook. And this is a really, really nicely played game by Anish. Keeping the pressure on for almost the whole game. Bishop e2 hitting the rook, rook d4. Again, we can't take this because of the same thing. Jack, jack takes. So queen h1 was played, king a2, queen back, bishop g3 now. And yeah, now that the rook has joined the fray, it's going to be lights out soon. Bishop c4 check, simply b3. And as a bishop a6, simply king b2, just defending the c2 pawn. And here MVL had seen enough. There's a threat of rook d6, picking up the bishop. There's a threat of rook here and here. Too much stuff going on. And White can pick and choose how he wants to finish the game. And MVL didn't want to see more. So a nice win by Anish. Well, tomorrow, day 3. So we'll see who's going to qualify. And yeah, I think the real action starts in the quarterfinals. But I'll keep an eye on some interesting games and hopefully update them for you. And see you tomorrow. And then we'll see you in the quarterfinals on Tuesday. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.